Hello, and welcome to the Inside Knowledge for People with IBS. I'm Anna Mapson. This is episode 159. Today, I'm really pleased to be joined by Anne Richardson. She's a registered nutritional therapist and cognitive behavioural therapy practitioner, and she specialises, or as she would like to say, she works exclusively with people who have disordered eating and often restricted eating patterns. I was really pleased to get her on the show to talk about the overlap between dietary restriction, disordered eating, clean living and orthorexia, and an obsession with being healthy, and so many of those things that they really overlap. She's got over 10 years experience working with people in this field, and she also has personal lived experience of eating disorders. And I think it's a really great episode. I hope you all enjoy this. So let's go. Hello, Anne. Welcome to Inside Knowledge for People with IBS. Thanks for being here.
Oh, thanks for having me, Anna.
Great. Well, could we just start with a little explanation of what you do, how you work, a bit about your practice?
Okay, so I'm a registered nutritional therapy practitioner. It always sounds like a mouthful, doesn't it? Yeah. Anyway, and I don't like saying specializing, but I only see people with eating disorders or disordered eating. I have been doing that for quite a long time now, about 10 years or so. And yeah, that's kind of it, really. That's me.
Yeah, great. And I really wanted to bring you in because I know you've got so much experience, like you said, 10 years of this. And I wanted to talk a little bit today about the overlap with a lot of the restriction and elimination diets that naturally come as soon as people get any digestive issues. It's one of the first things people will say is, oh, have you removed this? Have you removed that? And talk today a little bit about how that can escalate and get out of control, and like how it might tip towards more disordered eating, because I see that pattern quite a lot where people have taken it too far and it's really mentally taken over a lot of too much headspace.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, what do you see a lot of people who also have digestive issues, either because of their restrictive eating or alongside it?
Yeah, pretty much all of my clients will have digestive issues. And I think you have really case kind of scenario or three scenarios. You have digestive issues that arise because people have digestive issues, and you're more likely to see those people. People do have IBS, and people do become ill for whatever reason, and that can tip them into an eating disorder because they're thinking, blimey, I can't eat this and I can't eat that, and this is really scary, and that can happen. So there are, I would say, first case scenario is gut issues that arise completely independently from an eating disorder. Then you have gut issues that arise because of the eating disorder. I see that clearly a lot. If you don't eat very much, for example, your digestion will slow down. So then you will experience all sorts of not very nice side effects that make you think, wow, food is actually really scary, because when I eat, I get this and this and this happening. So, but these are really gut issues that happen because of restriction. You could also have gut issues that happen because of like overconsumption, which usually goes hand in hand with restriction. But essentially, an example is someone who with bulimia, so they will potentially restrict and then they will binge, which is a lot of food that your body has to deal with in one go, and then they will get rid of the food, which is also kind of an unnatural way of dealing with that food. So you can have digestive issues that arise because of that. And then the third case scenario is really like digestive issues that arise because of recovery. And these will be transient, clearly, because hopefully you're not going to be in recovery forever. But a lot of the people that I see need to eat quite a bit of food to get better. And you are going to have digestive issues that arise because of that. But it's not because the food is wrong or your gut is wrong. It's because you restricted too much, and then your body has to adapt. Does that make sense?
Yes, definitely. So there's like a long road to eating more food, and some of the blockages in the way, I guess, is the physiological changes that are happening because of restriction, maybe
Mm.
changes to the gut microbes as well, like your ability to process some of the foods, like especially fiber, high fiber foods, and then also,
Yeah.
I guess, yeah, the like the mental side of it, like feeling okay with eating some of those foods that have felt off limits for so long.
Yeah, and I'm sure you remember when we trained in nutrition, we were taught about the gut-brain axis. This is very much at play with my clients, and I'm sure yours as well. What you feel in the gut will be sort of fed back to the brain, and what is also happening in the brain will kind of come to your gut. So this is quite a big axis. It's like the motorway that I work on, basically.
Yes, and you can't split them out as well. It's like
No.
mental health is separate to your physical health. Actually, it's kind of all the same. It's all the same body, right? All the
Yeah.
same. Yeah.
I often say to people, health is mental health plus physical health. That's health. You can't have one without the other. You can't
Uh,
be like super healthy because you're only eating like green stuff. And but if you are also then worried about eating a chocolate bar, you're not healthy.
yeah.
But you
Uh,
can't also just eat chocolate bars all the time because you're really happy eating chocolate bars, because chances are that's not going to be healthy either. It's a mix of both. And that's
mm,
what is tricky. And I think that's what a lot of people don't like. I often joke, and I'm sure you've seen that, you've seen me say that on Instagram. With me, it's always the 50 Shades of Grey. It's never going to be black or white. So I am never going to say, yes, you can definitely do that. It's, yeah, you can do that, but it depends on this and this and this. And this is really boring. People don't want that. People don't want definite answer. And again, I always joke that this is why I'm not going to be that successful compared to some people, because there's lots of caveats to what I'm going to tell you, and it's not really exciting. It's not really sexy. Um, so yeah,
But you
so my
do make
product.
it fun, I think, on Instagram. Like, and if anyone hasn't seen, they should go and put it. I'll put it in the show notes. But I think you make all of this boring stuff seem quite well, put it a humorous spin on what can be quite distressing and horrible things. So I think it makes it entertaining for people, and then they stick with you because that's good because
Yeah.
the message is there. So I do really like your Instagram.
Thank you. And I think there's two reasons for this. I think first of all, I'm a bit of a clown.
Yeah.
So that's my natural personality. I feel quite at ease.
Yeah.
And I keep wanting to do LinkedIn, and I just go, this is really too serious for me. I don't feel at home, but I'm going to do it. And the other reason is eating disorders are really serious. And it's tough. The sessions that we, our sessions are tough. People often cry, it's scary. I can sort of say to someone, oh, like, why don't you have a slice of bread? And you could see in the face of people, they are petrified, and it's just a slice of bread, but it's really hard. So I feel like I have almost like a duty to make things fun a little bit, to laugh, to sort of dramatize things, because it is so hard, and we need to sort of see that food is also fun. It's joyful, it's obviously delicious, but it is also fun. Yeah, that's kind of my way of approaching it.
Yes, and that's when I guess the rules and the restrictions start to overcome or start to interfere with your life to the extent that you're avoiding social interactions and missing out on a lot because of the food.
Mm,
Like, might be some of the instances where I would maybe feel a bit more worried about someone with their restrictions, because working with people who have IBS, I do have a role in guiding people through restrictive diets like the FODMAP diet, but and not everybody has issues with disordered eating. But
yeah.
at the same time, like, those restrictions are easy to kind of cling on to, especially if people are reading things online. There's so much, like I said, so much on social media now that people can access, maybe too much information, that
Mm,
you end up feeling all foods are kind of dangerous to some extent if you do
yeah.
enough scrolling.
Yeah, if you do it enough, you'll find it. And I
Yeah.
think that's why, I'm obviously not a fan of exclusion diets for obvious reasons. But it's not to say that they don't have a role. I wouldn't do that with my kind of clients, but it can be useful for some people. And I think my advice to anyone who has queries on that and who is thinking that maybe there is a problem when it comes to their digestion, food, etc., I would say perhaps, but then go and see someone. I would say, go and see someone like you, because I don't think you should do it on your own, because you're going to find like you're going to do research on TikTok and it's just going to throw a lot of stuff at you. It's much better to see someone who knows what they're talking about, and someone who's going to walk them through that restriction in a safe way. And for me, exclusion diets can be really powerful, but they can't be done long term. I don't know what you think about that, but in my view, it's something that we do for a little bit to kind of test the waters, and then we reintroduce to see what works, what doesn't work. And I think you need someone more objective and someone with knowledge like you to do that.
Well, people often will try something like the low FODMAP diet. That doesn't really get a bit of improvement, doesn't get somewhere. So then they'll layer in, antihistamine diet. Then they'll layer in, maybe sulfide, and I need to cut out proteins. And you're literally left with no foods that feel safe, because you can find reasons to cut any of them out, but until you know really why you're doing it, like how to go about the making sure you've got a proper balanced diet as well. Yeah. So what
Mm.
would you think would be some of the signs if people are following, they're out there on their own, just following some sort of restrictive diet, trying to control their symptoms in some way? Like, how might people know when it's an issue for them?
I think when maybe it sounds weird, but when the food is constantly on your mind, if you find that you are constantly thinking, can I do this? Should I do this? Or is this right? That's a red flag. Food should just be fairly easy. And of course, if you are doing some kind of exclusion diet, you're going to have to think about it a bit more than the average person, because it's going to be trickier. But if it's constantly on your mind, and if you're worried, if you're thinking, well, I can't go there, what if this is like this, and what if that, I would say, stop and think, is there a problem here? Has this taken too much space in your life?
Yeah, so kind of taking over your thoughts, and maybe
Yeah.
controlling then some of your behaviors around how you live your life. And yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And yeah, and you might find that your life basically shrinks. It becomes smaller and smaller, and you start saying no to a lot more things. Um, yeah.
Yeah. And then I guess it's, so different for all your different clients. But what are some of the things you do? I know you're CBT trained as well. So what
Hmm.
are kind of some of the treatment approaches that you have with people?
It really depends on the person, so I don't have like a certain protocol. But I think my way of working is that I ask more questions than I give answers, which might seem weird, and I do explain that to people. Don't expect me to just basically give you all the answers, and it's not because I've got this great business plan that I'm not going to tell you anything, and then you're going to keep talking to me. I'm rubbish at business, really. So it's not what I'm doing, but it's that it's not that simple. If it was that simple, I would have lots of handouts, and I would charge people for, and then they would buy those handouts, read them, and then they would just be fine. Unfortunately for everyone, for me included, it doesn't work like that. So I ask a lot of questions to to help the person question their thinking and to scramble their thoughts. Sometimes I ask questions and the answer to which I generally don't have the answer, so we're just basically figuring it all out together. And sometimes I do have the answer, but I want them to try and find out the answer for themselves, because it's much more powerful if they realize things themselves than me saying, actually, you can eat white pasta, it's totally fine. Um, if they come up to with that solution themselves, they are much more likely to stick to it. So CBT for me helps clients by asking lots of questions and sort of digging quite a lot deeper. And a lot of the behaviors around food are quite irrational. So I can't turn up with my nutritionist brain on and go, well, no, actually, it's all fine. I think you find that if you eat fat, it's really good for you. This is not going to work for my clients. They'll just, in their heads, they'll go, yeah, it's all very well, but I am special. My body is not going to respond that way. So I have to have a different approach. And so it's a collaboration together where we'll explore their behaviors and their thoughts. And I work a lot with thoughts, feelings, behaviors, and sensations. So that's kind of like a circle that we go through a lot. With them realizing or not, we go through that a lot. We talk about the thoughts and the behaviors and the thoughts and the behaviors. And often I find that people think, oh, when I have a thought, I then end up doing something. So I need to stop thinking about it. I need to stop thinking that avocados are bad. And once I step out of that, I will be able to eat avocados. And I go, what about we approach it from a different angle? What about we start eating avocados and see what that does to your thoughts? And usually, in time, the thoughts become a lot less loud because they see that they can eat avocado and, the world doesn't blow up. They don't sort of put on 10 stones. They don't become ill. And then by themselves, they will go, actually, you know what? It looks like avocados are fine. I can eat avocados.
Yeah.
It's much more
Sounds
likely
like
to
that
stick
takes
if
a
that
long
happens.
time as well, that whole process. Like you need to get them to trust you, like really build up that relationship. Then all this practical stuff on the food, but also the thought changing. It's like how long
Yeah,
do you work with people?
it really depends. It depends on um how the person is when they come to me, and it depends also how much how ready they are, and therefore how much they're going to throw themselves into the process. So for example, yesterday I finished with a lovely young lady, and we worked together for a year, which is not uncommon. And she worked really hard. She's someone who really worked hard. But I already had worked with her previously, a few years before, when she was younger. So she was sent to me by her mum, really. I can't remember how old she was, maybe like 17 or something, or 18, to look a young adult. She didn't really want to get better, but she kind of wanted to, but she wasn't totally ready. So she was doing it, and it kind of worked, but it wasn't sort of, it was more like a band, like a plaster, more than anything. And then she went away better, but not totally fixed. And I think we all knew that. And then she recontacted me a year ago by herself. Her parents were paying for the sessions, but nonetheless, it was her decision, and she threw herself into it. And then the progress was quite quite clear. And I don't think I will ever see her again. We'll see each other, we'll follow each other on Instagram and stuff. I don't think she'll be a client of mine again. I don't think she'll need to. I think we're good now. I think she's very solid.
Oh, that's so nice. Yeah, that when she realized she was ready, she came back and did the
Mm,
last bits. That's great.
yeah.
Yeah. And what are I was thinking about how people can almost like get back their confidence in their body, like when it doesn't, like with any chronic illness, but if you have something where it's not doing what you want it to do, you just want to be able to eat in some ways, but I know with your clients, like they maybe have other drivers stopping them from just eating, but
Mm,
certainly like the digestive issues, even if there's this like barrier, even if I wanted to eat, I can't because I bloat or I get diarrhea or something. Well, like, how do you sort of learn to accept your body and like sort of almost know when to keep pushing on through? Because I think that's a bit of a challenge that I work through with people is when you stop the trials, the reintroductions, when do you actually pull back and say, okay, maybe this was too much or too soon or not the right choice for you? It doesn't always work perfectly.
yeah. So sorry, your question is
I think it's
how.
around like how do you feel like sort of getting in tune with your body so that you know when to kind of push it further and when to try and get the way to a healthy diet. So if you know, oh yeah, I really want to be able to eat broccoli and I can't, and I'm quite scared to eat it, but then you want to kind of get through that challenge, when do you, I suppose, have the confidence that your body can do things in order to take some of those first steps? Because often people feel like my body just doesn't work anymore. It's not doing what I want it to do. I can't, I'm like trapped. I feel a bit kind of trapped. And some of it is a psychological trap, I think, sometimes.
Yeah, so I don't know if I'm going to answer your question, but I guess because there's quite a lot of layers there, but I guess I would want to separate the physical from the psychological. So let's say if someone eats broccoli and, the minute they eat broccoli, then they have diarrhea. That's pretty like it's quite physical. Um, and that's different from, thoughts of, oh my goodness, I've eaten broccoli. I wonder what's going to happen. And then they might have diarrhea, but is it caused by the brain kind of being overactive? So I think if it's like physical, I would go, okay, well, maybe we need to sort of think about the dose, maybe like you've eaten an entire broccoli, maybe could we just think about eating a bit less broccoli? And if it's, if every time that they eat a bit of broccoli, they have explosive diarrhea, I would probably say, look, maybe we just have to accept that broccoli is not going to be on the menu for you. And I know we always say the broccoli is super healthy, but you know what? Clearly for you, it's not. So there is a path of acceptance that needs to come, and um and it must probably come with a bit of grieving. I mean, it sounds crazy to say grieving about broccoli, but it doesn't have to be broccoli. Um, Perhaps with some chronic digestive issues, there needs to be a part of letting go, accepting, letting go, and grieving that your body at the moment isn't as able as it used to be, and it's not a bad body, it's just different. Um, and so if it was a more psychological issue, that's when I would push on. I would go, look, this is because it seems to me that it's because you're really worried about the broccoli. So could we maybe come up with some kind of experiment whereby you are going to be eating the broccoli, but you're going to be at home. So let's say you are worried about having diarrhea. It's not going to be fun because it's not fun to have diarrhea. But at the same time, if you're at home, it's not going to be as problematic. I probably would explore it that way to find out whether it's like psychological or whether it's a physiological problem. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, it's probably a bit of a roundabout question. I was gabbling.
Sorry, probably was a roundabout answer as well.
No. And the other thing which we've sort of mentioned a little bit, could you explain a bit about orthorexia? So this sort of preoccupation with being healthy and what that is. Yeah, and I just wanted to explore that a bit.
Yeah, sure. It's important because I see a lot of people with orthorexia. I would say there's a lot of my clients have orthorexia, and it is an eating disorder. Um, but it's more about being worried about the quality of the food rather than the calorific intake, or yeah. However, I find that they are linked. There is quite an overlap between anorexic tendencies and orthorexic tendencies. Sometimes orthorexia is a way out from anorexia. People just go, okay, well, I will eat again, but it needs to be very good food and very, like very nutritious. Sometimes orthorexia is a way in towards anorexia. And sometimes it's just a bit murky. I find that we have a lot more cases of orthorexia now because I think because of social media, because we see so much content about, did you know that this is really bad for you? Did you know that actually porridge is the worst possible food you could have for breakfast? Did you know that this has got a lot of pesticide? And did you know that sugar causes cancer? Like we have a lot of those. And so I see people who are afraid at the beginning maybe of eating, let's say, ultra processed food, and then they're afraid of eating sugar, and then they're afraid of eating meat or non-organic, and then in a very similar way to what you were explaining at the very start, the diet becomes smaller and smaller and smaller, and then the digestive issues start, which then confirms to them that actually food is really dangerous. And people then lose weight, and the more weight you lose, the less able you are to digest, the more your microbiome is kind of depleted, so the more likely you are to react to food. So yeah, it is definitely a problem now. And a lot of
Yeah.
young people, I find, are obsessed with eating really well. It's matcha this, matcha that, and matcha with, what is it I had the other day? Someone had, oh, they had some kind of weird powder in their matcha, which, I mean, matcha is powdery enough as it is for me.
Mm,
I can't remember what it was. And
mm,
mushrooms and everything.
yeah. Yeah. And also, I guess, a bit of an obsession I find alongside things like that with optimizing everything, like tracking your sleep, tracking your
Oh,
steps, tracking your heart rate, like really monitoring everything. I saw something advertised the other day, for like a something that you wear that you can basically test your own poo all the time, and it constantly is like monitoring. And I just thought, oh my God, that's like the next level of data, is to constantly have an update on what your poo is doing on top of all the Fitbit and everything, Aura Ring, constantly outsourcing how you're feeling to an app or a device, and
oh
sort of saying,
yeah.
did I sleep well? Am I okay? Do I feel active enough?
I have a lot of things to say about that, but I will say some things, but not all of it. So, I guess I wrote a newsletter not so long ago about kind of what it was about, but at some point I made the point that I go to yoga. I really like yoga, da da da, and a lot of young people go there. And I noticed that most young people have an Apple Watch or an Oura Ring.
Mm.
They all have that. They're all tracking something. God knows what they're tracking. But they're definitely tracking. And I thought that's kind of interesting that they're so young and they have to have all this data. And slight anecdote, when it was during lockdown or something, I decided to track my sleep because I wasn't sleeping very well. I wasn't prepared to spend money on it, so I downloaded this free app, and then you put it on your phone, and you put your phone next to your face. I could still be on airplane mode, but anyway, and then it would track your sleep. And the app was saying to me that it was taking me an hour and a half to go to sleep, which isn't true. Probably can count to 20 and I'm out. I'm very, very good at falling asleep. I can wake up later on, but I'm very good at falling asleep. Don't take that away from me. And I was basically getting pissed off that I was being accused of taking an hour and a half to go to sleep. And I was telling that to a friend, and then he said to me, it sounds like actually the app is stressing you out more than it should. And I thought, you know what? Actually, you're right. This is actually stressing me out. It's probably preventing me from sleeping more than anything.
Yeah.
And so I find that all this data is actually quite stressful. And the thing is, we don't need any of this. We have a very good system, and it is called the body. And we have a lot of signals that the body sends to us to tell us what to do. I'm a bit thirsty today because it's really hot. I'm a bit thirsty. That's a signal I need to drink. I was a bit hungry earlier, so I had a little bit of a snack because I had a signal. I don't need the signal to tell me when I should go to sleep. Um, I mean, we all mess a little bit with the signal of when to get up because we have lives to live, but technically we shouldn't. Um, I don't want a signal to tell me, when I fancy someone. Surely I should feel that myself, or when I'm angry with someone, I'm sure that there will be apps that will come. Maybe it's already there, an app that tells you when your pheromones kind of like align with other people's pheromone, and that is messing with biology, and I think messing with our brains, and also I think we've become more and more dumb. I said I wouldn't go off on one, but I have. But I think we are getting more dumb because we are then unable to listen to the signals that we have, which work very, very well. And also, and I think that's quite linked to what you do, there is a complete lack of trust for the body. We don't trust what we're feeling. We just go, am I hungry? Have I eaten too much? Should I be doing this? Is this too early to eat? Often people say that to me. I can't eat before 12 o'clock. That's too early. Why? No, if you're hungry. I had my snack earlier. I don't know what time it was, but it was snack time clearly because I was hungry. God knows why, but I was, so I ate. I don't need the clock to tell me when to eat. So we've become less intelligent, I think, less like animals, which we are. And there is a real mistrust for the body, which I think is actually quite damaging.
Yeah,
And
you're
lack of
outsourcing, how much protein you should be eating as well to an app. And often then, especially I find people who are often men trying to cram in extra protein to build muscle, even if they're not hungry, they don't want it. And they feel like, oh my God, I've got to have another 50 grams before the end of the day, and overeating and then kind of messing with your digestion because the algorithm has said you need to optimize your macros, you need this, this, and this in this order, this much at each meal, no matter whether you actually want to eat that or not. And it's,
yeah. And the
difficult.
algorithm is just an algorithm, and it reminds me of like people use it a bit less, but my fitness pal, you put your details in and lo and behold, my fitness pal will tell you to have 1,200 calories because that's always 1,200 calories, kind of regardless of who you are, what you need, etc. So it's 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 how do you say that, it kind of messes with the system because that's not what you need. And so you then go out of your way to fit that system, and in that case, not eat. And
Mm.
then you become really hungry and you become very paranoid with food. It's quite similar to what you describe. And a bit like the steps, oh, I need to do that many steps. So people just go off and, walk around the block to meet the right step count. It's quite similar to what you were saying about protein. I must have another 50 grams of protein. You're not listening to what the body has told you because you're following an algorithm, but the algorithm is quite broad probably and probably faulty, and it has an answer for like the general population, but we're all very unique.
Yeah, it doesn't take into account your health conditions, your microbes, your genetics, like anything else, and your energy needs. Like you could be fighting off a virus and need a little bit more this week than you did last week. But if you're just sticking to the data points, you often miss things like that. And then yeah, it's a really tricky area for people to navigate because it feels kind of exciting when you get all this data. It's a little bit like with those, personal health, personal nutrition programs where people get a set of reports. You've probably reviewed them and you get a
Mm.
gut report and you get a blood sugar report and a whole list of foods and things that you should be doing. But it's all, again, just on a very standardized scale. So it has the appearance of being personalized and kind of tailored to you, but it's actually doesn't take into account a huge part of your life, which is maybe what's going on in your brain about the food, but also, other things that can't be measured in that way.
Mm. And isn't it sad that we get excited about external data instead of getting excited about internal data, which surely is much more to be trusted. I think it's exciting to just go, hey, I can tell when I want to go to sleep. I can tell whether I vibe with that person. I can tell whether I like this food or not. I think
Mm.
that's quite exciting. It's quite powerful. My body knows. I don't need anyone else.
I guess a
I'm
lot
not
of
saying I
people,
get it
though,
right.
minimizing their own sort of personal sensations because of having overridden them, either to lose weight or to stick to this restrictive diet, like you sort of dampen down some of the messages coming back to the brain because you don't want to hear them. I don't want to hear I'm hungry because eating is not good. So I'm going to ignore that and then maybe lose touch with it a bit. Is
Yeah,
that...
and also we're always told that, we shouldn't be hungry, we should eat less, eat less. So, experiencing hunger surely is then a bit what comes with fear, because why have I got this hunger when I'm being told that I should not be, that hungry? And also I think, and maybe it's doing the profession harm, but I just think um a lot of people position themselves as experts, like I know everything about food, I know, which is probably why I don't like to say I'm a specialist. It bothers me. Am I really a specialist? I think you're the specialist. You're the specialist of your own body. I'm just some woman who maybe can guide you, but I don't have the answer to everything. But because, especially on social media, we are faced with a lot of specialists, like masters of universe. We and people, maybe not us, but people then will question their own abilities to think, and they'll go, well, I'm not the specialist, they are the specialists and they know what they're doing, so I will listen to them. Except that you have lots of specialists. So you have the specialists that only eat red meat, and then you have the specialists that only eat tofu, and then you have the specialists that only just, I don't know, eats, every Tuesday. And so then it becomes quite confusing, because what are you supposed to be doing?
Yeah. Oh, that's so true. Yeah, definitely. So confusing and just overwhelming. And I think it sort of comes back a bit to the desperation in some ways to want to latch on to the next best thing that can fix you, that can, like, because if you don't have the resources to know what to do internally, then you latch on to any of those claims out there. And actually, that's the problem with social media, is that people are trying to stay on top of the algorithm. So you have to get more and more radical to do that. Controversial.
Yeah, and I think I would also then question, are you even to be fixed? Is there even a problem? And could the problem, and I find that a lot with my clients, in the end we come back to, could the problem be something very, very different to what we thought it was? You thought it was dairy, but it turns out, you're a bit lost. It turns out something's happened to you, and you needed to figure it out, and because it's a very difficult problem to figure out, you latched onto food as a way to numb or to make you feel better, because you could exploit data that you were given, and that made you feel better, but actually the problem was somewhere else. Could we explore that problem? And I might touch on that a little bit with people through CBT, but often I will advise people to also have a psychologist, or some psychological professional to explore that in greater depth. What is actually the problem about? It's rarely about food.
Yeah. Do you find people are open to that, or they're like, no, it's to do with my diet. I've had therapy before. It didn't help.
Sure. Yeah, it's not something that I would necessarily say at the first session. Or I probably will introduce it at the first session because I kind of have to. Um, but I am not necessarily going to push it straight away. But when we have a good rapport, we might discuss some of the psychological issues, because I do CBT as well. Um, and if something comes up, that's when I will say, you know what, that thing, it's bigger than what it's kind of outside of my remit here. I think you should go and explore it with someone else. And sometimes people go, great, and they have me alongside with someone else, and sometimes people just go off and work with that person, um and sometimes they work with that person and come back to me. It doesn't have, again, it's not like a cookie cutter approach. It doesn't have to be a certain approach. It depends on the person. And also funds are, to be taken into consideration. We are both private. Um, if you also have to pay for a private psychologist, because the NHS is overwhelmed, it might be difficult for a lot of people. So we can't just insist that they have someone. They can do what they want
So difficult. Yeah,
and what
yeah,
they
yeah. If
can.
only there was more for free. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, okay.
Um,
So is there anything else you'd like to finish up with? I think we've explored quite a few different topics, but yeah, if you were thinking about GI issue or gut issues and disordered eating and this, people who listen to this all have IBS or SIBO or different digestive issues. What would you say to them?
well, I'm sorry that you're experiencing this, first of all. I think that's what I would like to say, because it's not fun. I would say work with a professional like you, Anna, to try and work out what the problem could be. Um, but don't go off and exclude lots of things from your diet without knowing. And exclusion diets, as far as I'm concerned, should be short term. So it's not something that you embark on for life, unless you have unless you're celiac, that is going to have to be for life. But even celiac, don't go off on one to try by yourself. There are tests that could be done, actually quite reliable tests when it comes to celiac. So do things with knowledge, and then if you find that food has become a source of a lot of stress, then I would start to question, have you taken the right approach? There is no shame to be had, and there's nothing that can't be undone, but you might need a little bit of help to get back onto a road that is a bit more normal, because food should only be one part of your life. I mean, I know we're nutritionists, but food shouldn't be the most important things in your life. There are things that are much more important, your friends, your family, having fun. And if food has become encompassing, and it's everything to you, then something is off, and you need maybe a bit of help to rebalance things.
Great. Thank you. And where can people find you? On Instagram
Well,
and website?
yeah, mostly on Instagram, probably doing something a bit silly. That's where I belong. I guess I'm a bit on Facebook, but I hardly go on to Facebook. Mostly Instagram, and I'm the eating disorder nutritionist, so it's pretty easy to find. And also on my website, I am the eating disorder nutritionist.co.uk, and yeah, that's where to find me.
Good. Thank you so much. Thank you. That was great.
Thank you.
Well, I hope you got a lot out of that. I really enjoyed speaking with Anne. She's so well versed and well experienced in this arena. So, such a good resource. Do check out her Instagram if you haven't already, because it's full of lots of useful tips and questions to make you think about your diet. So, I just really like her approach, as I mentioned in the show. So, that's it for this week. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Inside Knowledge Podcast. Better digestion for everyone.